Before we think about remembrance, let's just spend a few minutes thinking about today's reading from Matthew. I guess we all know this parable very well, so let's just remind ourselves of the main points in the story. In it, Jesus is using a Jewish wedding as the starting point. The young women in the story would be waiting with the bride for the bridegroom to come. In the Old Testament, the writers often called God the husband or the bridegroom. Israel's whole nation is called the wife or bride. In the New Testament, the whole church is called the bride. The young women were preparing and went out to meet the bridegroom. As we see, half of them were prepared with their lamps, the other half were not. Clearly, from verse 5, we see that the bridegroom was a long time coming, so during the long wait, the oil was being used up. The foolish young women became sleepy, and so when they heard that the bridegroom was coming, they were not ready and did not have enough oil. The wise young women had enough oil and would not give any to the unwise women. This meant that they would have to buy some for themselves, and so when the bridegroom came, they were not around to be invited to the wedding feast. When they eventually arrived, they were not allowed in. This parable warns us that Jesus will return, and that when he does, we must be ready, as he is the bridegroom. As the second coming could be at any time, the question is, are we ready? Let's move on to the remembrance. As you probably know, the remembering of those who had died in the First World War began in 1919, and it was decided to make it at 11 o'clock on the 11th day of the 11th month, as that was the time at which the armistice was signed. In 1920, the Royal British Legion decided on the use of the poppy as a symbol of remembrance. We will all remember in different ways. As far as the Second World War is concerned, I was born less than 6 months before it ended, so was too young to remember any of it. However, I do remember the use of ration books and the repeated testings of sirens and searchlights in the years that followed. My father was in a reserved occupation, so did not have to go out to fight. He was, however, in the Home Guard, and he told me that they were issued with guns, but not with ammunition, rather like Dad's army. My father's brother, my uncle, joined the army and was captured and spent time in a prisoner of war camp. However, he never wanted to speak of it, so we didn't ask him any questions. In addition, my parents described the time when they were travelling on a train to the Midlands, when the train stopped, and from it they were able to watch the bombing of Coventry. Those of you who are older will, no doubt, remember quite a lot about that war. Maybe you were evacuated away from an area likely to be in the line of fire, but still have experiences that you can recall. I think most people agree that it's good to be reminded each year of the sacrifices that were made on our behalf, not only in the 2 world wars, but also in the various other conflicts that have taken place since, such as the Falklands War, the fighting in Afghanistan, and so on. It's good also that we have other permanent monuments to remind us. Here in Bexhill, as in most other towns, we have a war memorial at which we are able to place poppy crosses and wreaths on or before Remembrance Sunday. Indeed, this year, Armistice Day comes the day before Remembrance Sunday. In London, we have the Cenotaph and the Guards Memorial in Horse Guards, to name just 2. All around the world, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission maintain thousands of gravestones to remember those who have died. Similar memorials can be found around the world. For example, each day at the Menin Gate in Ypres in Belgium, there is a ceremony to remember them. Elizabeth and I went there in 2017, as it was the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Passchendaele, in which Elizabeth's Uncle Robin was killed. We managed to find the inscription of his name. In the picture, at the far end, you can see 3 of the fire service team who organise these daily remembrances. They use their bugles to play the last post and reveille. Nearer to the camera, there are soldiers and air personnel from New Zealand. Also, in 2006, we had a holiday in Italy and were able to visit the war graves at Ravenna and find the headstone for someone we knew about. Thinking of poppies, when we went to Australia in 2015, the schools in the area where our Mary and her family live had been making poppies for a display at the nearby town of Gosford. We were able to go and see the display, which included a poppy made by our granddaughter Leah. The service of remembrance held in the Albert Hall the day before Remembrance Sunday includes the dropping of poppy leaves, one for each person who has died in the various conflicts. Well, these are my memories, but shortly we shall be having our own act of remembrance, and during it you'll be able to recall what happened to you and also those who you wish to remember at this time. Amen.